I want you to take a second and think about every romantic comedy you have ever watched.
Oh, there are so many of them.
Right. Just mountains of them. And think about the fairy tales you were read as a kid or, all those pop songs on the radio that talk about destiny.
Yeah, the whole finding your other half thing. Soulmates.
Exactly. Finding your exact missing puzzle piece. Now, I want you to take all of that, put it in a mental box, and just throw it right out the window.
Seriously, just clear the deck entirely.
Because today, we're going to dismantle basically everything you thought you knew about love.
Yeah, because we are conditioned from such a young age to view romance through this highly idealized, almost magical lens.
It's everywhere.
It really is. We are taught that love is something that just happens to us, like a lightning strike.
Just a sudden, inescapable gravity that pulls you together.
Right, but that is not reality.
It's not. So today, we are jumping into a deep dive on a masterclass collection of research. We're combining the greatest minds in clinical psychology, attachment theory, sexology, and practical coaching.
The absolute heavy hitters of the field.
Yeah, we're talking about the foundational frameworks of people like Esther Perel, John Gottman, Sue Johnson, Terry Real, David Richo, Gary Chapman, Jillian Turecki, Mel Robbins, Dr. Tira, and Matthew Hussey.
It is essentially the dream team of human connection.
It really is. And our mission today is to figure out one thing. What actually makes love last when the fairy tale ends?
Right, to extract a reality-based framework for what a strong relationship actually is, structurally.
Okay, let's unpack this. We usually treat a relationship like a treasure we just find in the woods.
Like you just stumble upon it.
Yeah, you're walking along, you trip over a glowing chest, and boom, you have a perfect relationship.
If only it were that easy.
Right. But when you look at all this combined research, a really clear pattern emerges. A relationship is actually more like an empty plot of land.
Yes, that is the foundational shift right there. Realizing a relationship is not mainly a feeling or a label or even a commitment.
Wait, it's not a commitment.
Well, it is, but primarily it is a living system. It is a highly sensitive, dynamic ecosystem constructed between two nervous systems.
Wow, an ecosystem. I love that phrasing.
Yeah, and because it is a living system, it requires constant, deliberate architecture. You do not just find a house on that empty plot of land.
You have to actually build it.
Exactly. You build it, you maintain the plumbing, and occasionally you have to tear down the walls and renovate the whole thing.
And what happens when you build the system? Because it's not all just sunshine and painting walls, right?
Oh, no.
Right.
It doesn't just soothe you. It exposes you. It drags your least mature patterns, your childhood adaptations, and all your hidden fears right out into the daylight.
So it basically forces a choice. Are you going to grow up? Or are you just going to keep acting out your unresolved history on a brand new stage?
That is exactly the choice. And it brings up a really sharp observation about how relationships even begin in the first place.
Yeah, because most people do not enter relationships with a functional definition of what a relationship actually is.
They really don't. They enter with hope.
Hope and maybe some chemistry, maybe some loneliness.
And usually a script they inherited from their parents, whether they realize it or not.
Right, and because they lack a structural definition, they misinterpret the mechanics of what is happening to them early on.
Totally. At the beginning, we confuse intensity for compatibility.
Oh, that is such a big one.
It is. We think that just because our heart is racing and our palms are sweating and we cannot stop checking our phone, it means we are structurally a good fit for a 50-year shared life.
We confuse the thrill of the pursuit for actual, durable commitment.
And we confuse sexual chemistry for emotional maturity.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second. If we start right out of the gate with all this heavy mutual accountability and emotional maturity stuff, nobody is ever going to go on a second date.
Fair point, yeah.
Doesn't that crazy dopamine rush, that whole idealization phase, doesn't it serve a biological purpose?
It absolutely serves a purpose. The chemistry, the fantasy, the projection, it is evolutionary glue.
Evolutionary glue.
Yeah, the brain literally floods with dopamine and oxytocin to blind you to the other person's flaws.
Just long enough to lock you in?
Exactly. Just long enough for an attachment bond to actually form. The danger is not that this momentum phase exists.
Right. The danger is that modern romantic culture tells us the momentum phase is the relationship.
We try to live in that chemical high forever. But a relationship only becomes real when it moves from projection to mutual reality.
Because in the beginning, you don't actually know the person at all.
You really don't. You know a fraction of them. and your imagination just generously fills in all the remaining blanks with your deepest desires.
So you interpret their charm on date 3 as deep, unshakable character.
Right, or you interpret their effort to win you over as long-term consistency, which are two very different things.
So to transition into an actual adult relationship, that illusion has to lose ground to the truth.
It does. Two lives have to become morally and emotionally consequential to one another.
Consequential. That's a heavy word. What does that actually look like?
Well, the sources say it requires 5 elements to emerge. You need mutual care, where love becomes behavioral.
Like showing up on time, reliability, restraint.
Yes. Then you need mutual accountability and a mutual future orientation. But the most jarring element for many people is mutual influence.
Okay, let's hover on mutual influence for a second because the mechanics of this are just mind-blowing to me.
It really changes everything.
The idea here is that your unresolved psychological material no longer stays sealed inside of you.
Right. If you look at human beings as mammals who co-regulate, mutual influence is the profound reality that your private patterns become another person's biological climate.
That is so intense. Your patterns become their climate.
Yes. Your avoidance, your chronic shame, your workaholism, your tendency to give the silent treatment, it all enters the atmosphere of the bond.
So when you shut down and withdraw, you are not just taking a personal time out.
No, you are literally altering your partner's heart rate and their cortisol levels. Your internal weather becomes the climate they have to live in.
That completely flips the script on the whole "my issues are my business" excuse.
It destroys that excuse entirely.
If my tendency to get passive-aggressive when I'm stressed isn't just a quirky character trait, but an actual toxin I'm pumping into the air vents of our shared house, then personal growth isn't just a hobby.
No, it is a structural requirement of the relationship.
Wow. Jillian Turecki talks about this in her work, right?
She does. In her book, It Begins With You, she has this great point. She says, most people don't understand what it means to truly love someone and what it means to be truly loved.
Because it's not about tolerating endless confusion or just merging completely into one person.
Exactly. And this is where Mel Robbins' let them theory serves as such a brilliant mechanism for transitioning into reality.
Oh, I love the let them theory.
It's so practical. When you apply the let them mindset, literally letting somebody just be who they actually are without trying to manage, fix, or curate them, you stop living in a relationship with their potential.
You refuse to call control love.
Precisely. You accept the reality of the person standing right in front of you. That is the exact moment the fantasy dies and the actual relationship begins.
Okay, so we have cleared the plot of land. We have let the fantasy die. We are standing in reality.
It's construction time.
Right. How do we start building a house that doesn't collapse the very first time it rains?
Well, the research points to a few major load-bearing pillars: safety, trust, and friendship.
Let's start with safety, because I think people deeply misunderstand this specific word.
They really do.
Emotional safety does not mean endless comfort, right? Like, it doesn't mean we just sit around wrapped in bubble wrap.
Not at all. People often assume a safe relationship is one where nothing upsetting is ever said.
Where no one is ever triggered or uncomfortable.
Exactly. But an overly comfortable relationship is usually a dishonest one. Emotional safety is simply an environment where difficult truths do not reliably trigger contempt, humiliation, or chaos.
It means you can bring your fears or your financial mistakes or your sexual desires to the table, and you won't be systematically punished for it.
Yes. Safety is what allows the truth to emerge without your nervous system feeling like it is in literal physical danger.
Think of emotional safety like the guardrails on a steep, winding mountain road.
That's a great analogy.
Right. The guardrails don't flatten the mountain, they don't prevent the drive from being scary, and they definitely don't drive the car for you.
But they ensure that if you hit a patch of ice and slip, you don't fall off a cliff.
Exactly. They contain the conflict so the road remains drivable.
And once you have those guardrails installed, you can actually begin to build trust. But John Gottman's research gives us a highly specific, mechanical definition of trust here.
Because trust is not just a feeling you can command yourself to have.
No. Gottman says trust is memory organized into expectation.
Wait, okay. If trust is just memory organized into expectation, then grand, dramatic apologies after a betrayal are basically useless, right?
They are worse than useless if they aren't backed by a sustained change in behavior. Because an apology without changed behavior is just manipulation.
Wow. That's a harsh truth.
But it's true. You do not trust someone because of a cinematic vow they made at an altar 10 years ago.
You trust them because you have a massive database of lived evidence.
Exactly. Evidence showing what happens when you bring your reality to them. You trust them because their words and their actions have formed a recognizable, mathematically predictable pattern over a long period of time.
This is where Gottman drags everyone away from the Hollywood romance and forces us to look at the micro-behaviors.
The micro-behaviors are everything. He says trust is built through small things often.
Small things often. It's the daily emotional economy.
Yes, making the coffee in the morning. It's putting your phone face down when they walk into the room.
Oh, the phone thing is huge. It's turning toward your partner when they point out a weird article they just read online.
Trust is cumulative. People get deeply frustrated because they want one dramatic repair, like a massive weekend retreat or one breakthrough therapy session to instantly fix a broken bond.
But bonds are only stabilized when reality keeps confirming the safety of the connection day after day after day.
Right. And alongside safety and trust, Gottman introduces friendship as a structural necessity in romance.
Which is funny because when people hear friendship in a marriage, they immediately picture a couple wearing matching sweatpants, eating takeout in total silence, having zero sex.
Right, just totally domesticated roommates. But that is not what the research means at all.
What does it mean then?
Friendship is the antidote to assumption. Relationships decay incredibly fast when couples start interacting with an outdated mental file of their partner.
Oh, an outdated file. Like you assume you still know everything about them because you've been together for 8 years.
Exactly. You think you know everything. But stress changes people. A new job changes people.
Having a baby, losing a parent, just aging, these things alter our fundamental architecture.
They do. The person you married at 25 is absolutely not the person sitting across from you at 35.
So if you aren't actively updating your file on them, what Gottman calls updating your love maps, you are basically living with a ghost.
You are. You are talking to a version of them that no longer exists.
That is genuinely spooky.
It is. So friendship is the mechanism of curiosity. It asks, who are you now? What makes you panic now? What brings you joy now?
If you don't have that foundational curiosity, the relationship just becomes purely administrative.
You are just two project managers running a household together.
Okay, so we have built this beautiful, safe house with guardrails, we have trust, we have friendship.
Solid foundation.
But what happens when an unexpected storm hits and one partner feels like those guardrails are suddenly vanishing?
We move from daily maintenance into attachment panic.
And this is where Sue Johnson's work on emotionally focused therapy completely decodes how couples fight, isn't it?
It is brilliant. She shows that when a couple is arguing about who was supposed to load the dishwasher or a forgotten text message or a harsh tone of voice,
they are almost never actually fighting about those surface-level logistics.
never. They're fighting about the bond.
Because adult romantic love is primarily an attachment bond, right? Just like mirroring the biological imperative a child has to a caregiver.
Exactly. So underneath the bickering about the dishes is a much deeper primal question. And that question is, are you there for me?
Do I matter to you? Am I alone in this?
Yes. And if the answer to that question feels like no, the brain registers it as a literal survival threat.
Sue Johnson has a shorthand for secure love. She calls it ARE.
Right. Are you emotionally accessible, responsive, and engaged?
When that attachment bond feels shaky, trivial events become existential threats.
Because one person sees a forgotten text message as a minor logistical oversight, but the other person's nervous system sees it as undeniable evidence of deep disregard and impending abandonment.
Because they are not operating at the level of the text message.
No, they are operating at the level of the bond. And when the bond feels threatened, couples fall into what is known as the pursuer-withdrawer cycle.
Let's paint a picture of this for the listener, because I guarantee everyone has either lived this or dated someone who has.
Oh, 100%.
So imagine it's a Tuesday night. You ask your partner a simple question about a bill that didn't get paid, and they give a clipped one-word answer and just keep staring at their laptop.
Classic scenario.
Right. So you feel a spike of anxiety, you push harder, you say, why are you ignoring me? We need to talk about this. You escalate. You are the pursuer.
And underneath your escalation, underneath the criticism and the volume, is absolute terror.
Because the pursuer's nervous system is screaming, do not leave me alone in this disconnect.
Exactly. They poke and prod to get a reaction, because to them, even a negative reaction proves the partner's still in the room.
Meanwhile, the partner on the laptop is experiencing a completely different physiological event.
Completely different. The pursuer is coming at them with all this intense energy, and the partner gets overwhelmed.
So they shut down, they numb out, They get hyper-rational, or they literally stand up and leave the room.
They are the withdrawer. And underneath the withdrawer's silence is a different but equally intense fear.
They feel like they are failing.
Yes. They feel cornered, inadequate, and fundamentally flawed in the eyes of the pursuer. Their nervous system tells them, I don't know how to fix this, and if I engage, I will make it worse.
I just need to survive this moment by reducing the stimulation. So they freeze or flee.
And the tragedy of this cycle is that the protective strategy of one person is the exact trigger for the other person.
It's an infinite loop of biological panic. The more the pursuer pushes to get a response, the more inadequate the withdrawer feels, so they retreat further.
And the more the withdrawer retreats to lower the temperature, the more abandoned the pursuer feels, so they panic and push even harder.
Which leads to the fatal interpretive error couples make.
Right. You decide that your partner's protective strategy is their true, immutable character.
The pursuer looks at the silent withdrawer and says, you are a cold, selfish person who doesn't care about me.
And the withdrawer looks at the intense pursuer and says, you are an impossible, chaotic person who just wants to attack me.
So what does this all mean? That is such a massive paradigm shift. When your partner goes silent and leaves the room, they might actually be trying to protect the relationship from their own perceived inadequacy and anger.
Exactly. Even though it feels to you like they are abandoning you to die, they are actually trying to save the bond from further damage.
It shifts the entire conflict from a war over objective facts to a mutual recognition of vulnerability.
That's the work. The work is to go underneath the protective strategy and speak directly from the wound.
So instead of the pursuer screaming, you never listen to me, they learn to regulate their nervous system. They say, when I cannot feel you with me, I panic, and that's why I get sharp.
And instead of the withdrawer storming out, they learn to say, when I feel like I cannot fix the problem, I feel completely inadequate, and my instinct is to disappear.
You don't have to be perfectly healed. You just need a posture that says, when you are in distress, I will try to come toward you, not move away from you.
Yes. Sue Johnson says love really is all about being ARE with each other. Accessible, responsive, engaged.
Okay, so we need absolute security. We need accessibility and responsiveness. We need to be a perfectly safe harbor for each other.
We do.
But if we achieve that, we slam right into a massive paradox. Because if we get too secure, if we become too merged and comfortable and predictable, we might accidentally kill the romance entirely.
It happens all the time. Couples who never fight sometimes stop having sex altogether.
This is where Esther Perel's framework revolutionized how we think about long-term desire.
She really broke the mold here. We have this culturally ingrained expectation that the safer, kinder, and more bonded we become, the deeper our erotic life will naturally grow.
But Perel points out a structural contradiction in human architecture. We have a fundamental need for security, predictability, safety, and permanence.
But simultaneously, we have a fundamental need for adventure, mystery, risk, and the unknown.
Which leads to her famous concept. Fire needs air. Desire needs space.
It's so profound. Love is about having, knowing, and closing the distance.
Yeah.
You want to shrink the gap between you and your partner to zero.
But desire is about wanting, and structurally, you cannot want what you already possess entirely.
To want something, there has to be a gap. There has to be a bridge to cross.
This is why a relationship that is incredibly kind, highly communicative, and excellent at co-managing a household can simultaneously become completely sexually dead.
Exactly. Domestic love dampens desire if it's overextended.
So what are the specific mechanics that flatten desire over time? How does domesticity kill the erotic spark?
One of the primary mechanisms is role exhaustion.
Yeah. Role exhaustion. Okay, explain that.
Well, when you spend 90% of your time interacting with your partner as a co-parent, a financial co-manager, or just a logistical roommate, your brain literally categorizes them in the same mental file as your accountant or a sibling.
Yikes. That definitely shuts down the dopamine pathway required for erotic mystery.
It completely shuts it down.
Mm-hmm.
And add to that overfamiliarity. That's when every bit of mystery is converted into administrative data.
You know exactly what they're going to say, how they chew their food, what their complaints are. There is no unknown left to explore.
You've lost your selfhood, and they've lost theirs.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here on behalf of the listener. Are we saying that merging our lives, sharing our deepest thoughts, and being best friends who do everything together is actually bad for our sex lives?
That's a common fear, but no. The research is not saying care and friendship are bad. It is saying that separateness is not the enemy of intimacy. It is a required condition for it.
Because a lot of people use extreme closeness to manage their own anxiety.
Yes, they overdisclose, they collapse all privacy, they monitor their partner's every mood, and they demand to do every single activity together because psychological distance feels like a threat to the bond?
But in suffocating that distance, they suffocate the space where desire lives.
Right. So how do you generate that space without creating insecurity?
Yeah, how do we practically execute that?
Perel emphasizes that people are often most drawn to their partner not when they are cuddled up on the couch perfectly fused in a Netflix binge, but when they are looking at their partner from a distance.
Seeing them radiant in their own element.
Exactly. Watching them hold court at a party, or speak passionately about their career, or play an instrument. When they are confident, self-sustaining, and alive to something outside the relationship.
You realize, I do not own this person. They are an independent, mysterious entity.
A strong relationship must hold attention. Enough security for attachment, but enough individuality for curiosity.
Okay, managing that tension between extreme closeness and necessary distance sounds like high-level relationship calculus.
It is incredibly difficult.
How do we actually build a dynamic that holds both on a random Tuesday afternoon?
Well, the experts say love isn't found, it's built through daily architecture.
Matthew Hussey's pragmatism is really useful here. He notes that the goal is to find, attract, and keep lasting love.
And the key word there is lasting.
Right. Chemistry is simply data, not destiny.
Chemistry tells you there is biological resonance. But chemistry can also just be your nervous system mistaking anxiety for excitement.
Which happens a lot. Lasting love requires moving past initial attraction into demonstrated consistent character. It requires daily construction.
And David Richo maps out this construction with his 5 A's of mindful love.
Oh, I love the 5 A's. Let's list them. Attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing.
Let's dig into allowing, because I think it's the hardest one for people.
It really is. What does allowing actually look like in practice?
Allowing is the practice of presence over performance. Let's say your partner comes home from work deeply stressed and frustrated.
The opposite of allowing is trying to fix it immediately or telling them they shouldn't be upset.
Or getting anxious yourself because their bad mood is ruining your nice evening. Allowing means you let them have their emotional experience without making it about you.
You create a container for their stress without demanding they change it to make you more comfortable.
Right. It is building love through congruence. Your words and your actions matching over a long period of time, reducing the interpretive strain on the relationship.
But all that attention and allowing only works if your partner actually registers it as care.
Which brings us to Gary Chapman's widely known, but often poorly applied, love languages framework.
People treat this like a fun internet quiz to figure out if they like gifts or hugs.
Yeah, it's become a bit of a pop culture cliche.
Yeah.
But structurally, it is about the absolute necessity of translation.
Because intent and impact can deeply diverge in a relationship.
Exactly. One person might be pouring out love by doing all the household chores, fixing the car, and balancing the budget. Acts of service.
But their partner might be starving for verbal affection and physical touch.
And if the care is not translated into a form the receiving nervous system can recognize, both people end up miserable. The person doing the chores feels unappreciated and exhausted, and the person wanting the verbal affection feels abandoned and unloved.
I used to think about this like broadcasting a brilliant radio show, but your partner's radio is tuned to an entirely different frequency.
It doesn't matter how great the content is if it's just static on their end.
Or another way to look at it is like currency. It's like trying to pay for your groceries in Tokyo with Canadian dollars.
The Canadian money's real, it has actual value, and you worked hard for it.
But the local system in Tokyo literally cannot process it. You aren't broke, and you aren't trying to cheat the cashier. You just haven't converted your currency into a tender the other person can utilize.
The care does not count if it does not land.
It must become legible in the psychological world of the other person.
Exactly. But here is the inevitable reality. Let's say you figure out the currency. You are transmitting clearly. They are receiving clearly. You understand each other perfectly.
And you both realize you just fundamentally disagree.
Yes. You hit what the research calls the governance phase.
The governance phase.
Yeah.
Eventually, every relationship enters this. At the beginning, difference is decorative.
Right. It's cute that you are hyper-organized and they are spontaneous.
But eventually, difference stops being decorative and starts costing something. It costs money, it costs time, it dictates family dynamics.
Many couples hit the governance phase and panic, assuming they made a terrible mistake, and are fundamentally incompatible.
In reality, the relationship has simply moved from romance to governance. And I love how Terry Real frames this. He says difference is not a moral verdict, it's a design problem.
That completely flips how we argue.
It means my partner wanting to sleep with the bedroom window wide open in November isn't them being selfish and cold, and me wanting the heat on isn't me being needy and weak.
It's literally just an HVAC engineering problem you have to solve.
Immature relationships moralize difference. They weaponize it.
Terry Real's framework shifts couples from a posture of righteousness to a posture of stewardship. The central question of a conflict can no longer be who is objectively right.
The question shifts to what protects us, because you can win the argument and completely destroy the bond in the process.
Real has this powerful quote. He says, marital intimacy requires democracy, a meeting of peers.
Democracy in a relationship, that doesn't mean you feel exactly the same way about everything or that every decision is split 50-50, right?
No, it means you both have equal human dignity when negotiating reality. What Terry Real brilliantly exposes is that many so-called communication problems are actually hidden power problems.
We have to look at the structural hierarchy of the relationship. Who carries the emotional labor?
Whose moods dictate the weather of the house? Whose stress is considered real work stress? And whose is dismissed?
Here's where it gets really interesting. You can go to years of therapy, you can read every self-help book, you can learn all the perfect, sanitized I statements in the world.
But if your relationship operates as a hierarchy where one person's subjective reality simply matters more than the others, all those communication scripts are completely useless.
If one person gets to occupy the center stage as the objective truth teller, and the other person is forced into the role of adapter, the system is fundamentally corrupt.
It will eventually breed either massive resentment or a complete collapse of selfhood in the submissive partner.
You have to solve the problem of power and fairness. But in any democracy, there will be clashes. Ruptures are absolutely inevitable.
You will miss a tune, you will snap, you will be selfish.
So the survival of this democratic relationship relies entirely on what happens after the clash.
Which brings us to repair. Repair is arguably the master skill of long-term love.
Every relationship ruptures. The difference between a durable bond and a brittle one is not the absence of rupture, but the presence of repair.
Gottman's data shows that the success of repair attempts is one of the highest predictors of relationship resilience.
And Sue Johnson shows that repair is the only thing that restores the mammalian attachment bond after a threat.
But we have to be very clear on what repair is not. It is not an apology or an explanation.
Right. It is not simply saying, I'm sorry, okay, can we drop it now? To shut down the discomfort of the argument.
And it is making the injury metabolizable for the other person.
Let's talk about the explanation part. Why do we reflexively explain ourselves when we apologize? Like we say, I'm sorry I snapped at you the second you walked in the door, but I had a really long, stressful day at work.
We all do it.
Why does that completely ruin the repair mechanism?
Because the word but acts as an eraser. It turns the apology into a defense attorney's closing argument.
It shifts the emotional focus away from the impact of your actions on your partner and puts the focus right back onto your own intentions and your own stress.
Repair is not about defending your intent. The anatomy of a true repair involves 4 distinct mechanical steps.
Okay, let's break them down. Step 1.
First, acknowledging reality. Agreeing that something actually happened. No gaslighting, no saying you're too sensitive.
Step 2.
Second, recognizing impact over intention. Saying, I see how my tone made you feel belittled, regardless of whether you actually meant to belittle them.
Impact over intention. That's huge.
Step 3. Third, lowering defensiveness so the injured person doesn't have to fight to prove they're bleeding.
In step 4.
Fourth, a commitment to actually change the structure or behavior moving forward.
And the reason this is so incredibly difficult to execute in real time is because repair costs ego.
It costs so much ego. It requires you to tolerate being the bad guy for a moment. You have to sit in the acute physiological discomfort of having caused pain to someone you love without instantly self-protecting through blame or counterattack.
Shame rushes into the nervous system, and people defend their ego at the direct expense of the bond.
Gary Chapman notes that forgiveness is not a feeling, it is a commitment.
But the combined research strongly cautions against the danger of premature forgiveness.
Premature forgiveness is dangerous because it often acts as a bypass. It protects the offender from the discomfort of accountability, and it forces the injured party to swallow their pain just to keep the peace.
Real forgiveness requires that the reality of the pain has been made less raw through a genuine, accountable repair.
A real repair interrupts the isolation of the conflict and provides a structural path back to each other.
So repair patches the holes in the boat. But what keeps the boat moving forward when the water is calm?
Relationships drift if they aren't actively served. Serving doesn't mean self-abandonment, it means stewarding the bond.
We tend to assume that two specific things will just take care of themselves if we love each other: our sex life and our sense of shared meaning.
Both assumptions are historically and psychologically false. Erotic life and shared meaning do not take care of themselves.
Esther Perel radically dismantles the myth that good sex in a long-term relationship should always be spontaneous.
She argues that committed sex is premeditated sex. It's willful, it's intentional, it's focus and presence.
People think planning sex ruins the passion, but the clinical reality is that neglect ruins passion much faster.
Desire is shaped by imagination, anticipation, and emotional climate. You don't just wait to be struck by lightning, you have to build the fire.
And this involves Dr. Tara's work, right? She is the expert in the field of sexual communication.
Yes, couples often don't lack attraction, they lack language. They don't know how to articulate what turns them on, what makes them feel pressured, or what the actual function of sex is in their specific dynamic.
If there is silence around the mechanics and purpose of intimacy, it just breeds shame.
Couples must discuss what sex is actually for in their relationship on a given Tuesday. Is it for physical comfort? Is it playful exploration? Is it a power exchange? Or is it just reconnection and reassurance that the attachment bond is still secure?
And zooming out from the bedroom, that intentionality applies to Gottman's concept of shared meaning.
A partnership needs an existential why beyond paying the bills and surviving the week.
Without a shared architectural vision, the relationship just becomes a logistical management company.
But maintaining this level of intention, curating desire, building shared meaning, repairing conflict, requires boundaries.
Which connects right back to Mel Robbins and Jillian Turecki. You cannot have a vibrant, deeply meaningful relationship if one of you is constantly shrinking to keep the peace.
No, you can't.
Self-abandonment looks like patience, but it's actually a poison. To serve the bond does not mean to blindly adapt to your partner's every whim.
It means to steward the relationship so it remains a place of truth and warmth. Our relationship cannot remain intimate if one person's actual, authentic experience is steadily disappearing from it.
And speaking of poison, that leads us directly into the grim reality of how relationships actually break.
It is rarely the dramatic explosion.
The dramatic explosions get all the movie plots, but the research shows that relationships usually die from quiet, daily corrosion.
Distinguishing between a hard season and actual corrosion is one of the most difficult tasks of adulthood. We break this down into strain, damage, and collapse.
Strain is just the normal friction of life, right? Fatigue, having a toddler, a stressful season at work. Strain is uncomfortable, but it doesn't destroy the underlying trust.
Damage is more serious. Damage is repeated behaviors that alter the structural integrity of the bond.
Like Gottman's concept of contempt. He identifies contempt as the single most destructive habit in a relationship.
The eye-rolling, the mocking sarcasm, the chronic superiority.
Why does contempt kill a relationship so effectively?
Because it is an acid that erodes the immune system of the bond. It communicates, I am fundamentally superior to you and you are disgusting or pathetic to me. It instantly destroys the democratic purehood Terry Real talks about.
And alongside contempt is Sue Johnson's observation of repeated non-repair. If disconnection happens over and over and there is never a meaningful repair, the nervous system literally learns that reaching out for connection is futile.
Protest eventually turns into flat resignation. And quiet resignation is terrifying because it means hope has left the room.
And then we reach collapse. Collapse is when the conditions of love have been eroded past the point of function. The soul of the relationship is dead.
Which brings up a really sobering question for everyone listening to consider.
How many people are in relationships right now that have already suffered emotional collapse, but they're staying because the institutional arrangement, the house, the kids, the shared calendar is still intact?
It's a quiet tragedy. The inner life of the bond has been a ghost town for years. There is no villain, just what Perel calls an extinction of curiosity and encounter.
Love fails slowly when truth, respect, repair, and aliveness leave the building, even if the two people stay inside it.
This heavy realization brings us to the ultimate requirement of love. If we want to avoid that slow corrosion, we have to look inward.
The hardest truth in all this research is that no relationship can be healthier than the emotional maturity of the people inside it.
Committing to someone doesn't cure your avoidant attachment, your controlling nature, or your fear of conflict. Love simply gives those tendencies a massive stage.
This is why Turecki's premise in It Begins With You is structurally correct. Healthy relationships are bottlenecked by self-responsibility.
You have to interrogate your own mechanics. Mel Robbins' let them theory comes back here, not as a tool for detaching from your partner, but as a tool for discernment.
You cannot force emotional maturity in another person. You can only set your own standards and hold your own boundaries.
David Richo points out that sustaining love asks intense developmental questions of us. Can you regulate your own nervous system without dominating the room? Can you hear the word no without collapsing?
Wanting love is a universal human drive. Having the psychological capacity to sustain it is a completely different skill set.
The goal of the inner work is to stop making your unhealed history your partner's invisible daily assignment.
Stop making your history your partner's invisible assignment. That is the crux of it all. Which brings us to the ultimate definition of enduring love across all these frameworks.
Love is a practice of meeting again and again through change, disappointment, and time.
It's not a place you arrive at and own forever. You meet them in the initial attraction, and then you have to meet them again in reality.
You meet them after a brutal fight, and you meet them in the vulnerability of repair. You meet them after career success changes them, after deep grief, and after aging changes both of your bodies.
It's not that two people never lose each other. It's that they keep learning how to find each other again. You meet each other anew.
There is such a profound dignity in this definition. It doesn't promise a magic shield against loneliness. It is grittier, it requires immense labor, but it is infinitely more beautiful.
It relies on agency, not magic. It is the deliberate creation of a shared ecosystem where two people can become fully known to one another.
And they remain truthful, accountable, and alive enough that a return to one another always remains possible.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. If a relationship is truly a living system that makes your internal unhealed patterns visible to someone else, what if the thing that irritates you most about your partner is actually just a perfectly designed mirror reflecting the exact developmental leap you've been avoiding your entire life? Think about that the next time you argue about the dishes. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of love. Keep asking the hard questions and keep doing the inner work. We will catch you next time.